media business is kind of broken in half. The right side is scripted series and scripted movies. So Disney, Amazon, Apple, HBO, Showtime, Netflix, scripted series, scripted movies. That's the right side. And there'll be 6, 7, 8 of those between $10 and $15. That's kind of the ball on the soccer field, and everyone's running to that ball. We're everything else. And so we've quietly picked up all the golf. We have the PGA Tour, the European Tour, Tiger, everywhere in the world except for the U.S. We have cycling. We own food and home. And today we announce, really core to our DNA, that we're the leader in natural history almost everywhere in the world with Discovery, Animal Planet, and Science. And we now are reuniting with the BBC, where we get their entire library, and we'll be launching a direct-to-consumer natural history product, which we think there's no more compelling family entertainment in the world. And we're picking up Planet Earth, Life, Blue Planet, King Tut in Egypt, Walking with Dinosaurs. So for us, this is sort of like the Marvel library. Not only do we have the entire library, but now we have spin-offs coming off and new series coming out of those brands that will be able to delight audiences everywhere in the world. And what family, hasn't seen Planet Earth or Life or Blue Planet? And so for us, it's a great opportunity because we're differentiated. We think there's a massive market for this, but also it's part of our mission. We'll be documenting the planet from space to the poles to every species and the endangered species to what's going on in our oceans. And the mission of the BBC and Discovery to come together and document the planet, this is the time. I mean, more than ever, because we all share planet Earth.
It's going to be expensive, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars to get it to where you want it to be.
Well, it's going to be expensive, but it's the business that we're in. We're already programming and creating blue chip content. We have big pieces of blue chip that are going to be coming in the next year that we've been working on for 4 or 5 years. So does the BBC. But also, it's dramatically less expensive. When we did Planet Earth, Planet Earth itself is about 1/10 of the cost of The Crown. So this content is much less expensive, and we're the major player in this space.
We said 10-year deal, but you get the library in perpetuity?
No, the whole thing is 10 years. So we have our existing library and all of our core IP, and then we get the BBC library and all of their core brands and IP, plus everything that they produce and everything that we produce for the next decade.
What do you think of the fact that Netflix actually seems to be getting into the unscripted world, seems to be getting into reality programming? They haven't gone directly at some of the kind of programming that you have, but how much of this is defensive in terms of trying to protect, put a moat around the kind of work that you've done?
Well, I would say it's really offensive in that we have almost all of the great natural history in the world right now. We're on the ground in 200 countries in every language, and so is the BBC. And we're now together. The content, a lot of the content that we're getting is coming off of Netflix now and won't be going back on, and it's on with us. But more importantly, the Netflix brand, the HBO brand, the Disney brand, they stand for entertainment. They're about scripted series and scripted movies. So maybe on the edges, they'll do a documentary about food or about home or about nature. But this is core to what we do. And when people think about natural history, they think of us.
You're still in the advertising-supported business for the most part.
Right.
Do you see a day where there's a subscription service a la Netflix for this kind of business?
Well, that's exactly what we're announcing today.
No. But I'm saying what's like for a true price point that's not ad-supported.
Yeah. So we're going to launch in 2020 based on all of this great IP together with a lot of exclusive content. And it'll be less than $5.
Less than $5.
Maybe it's $3, maybe it's $4.
That's what I was trying to think.
That's one of the I don't know if it's a criticism in the Journal. It's sort of a low-cost piecemeal approach to trying to compete with some pretty hefty competitors, right?
Well, look, 50% of what people consume on TV and off TV is scripted series and scripted movies. What we control, home, food, Oprah Winfrey, natural history, is the other 50%. And so we think that this is actually massive. The other thing is, what you can do with those subscription services is you view them. So you could watch Billions, which is a terrific service. Congratulations. Or you can watch The Crown. but you just view it. If you watch natural history and then you're interested in what's going on in Africa, you could then, within our service, you can view a whole series on Africa, or there'll be podcasts on the Serengeti, or what's going on with the climate, or what's happening with oceans. There'll be an opportunity to talk, if you're interested in space, to astronauts. So on a Saturday or Sunday morning. So we view ourselves as being able to offer something as view and do. And that is compelling.
David, when I told you during the break that this looks like a great deal. It's a great library. But from the consumer's perspective, it's yet another example of fragmentation. The consumer sits down on the couch, says, "What do I want to watch?" And they don't know where to look. Do I look at Disney for this, or Amazon, or do I look at AT&T's new service? Do I come to your new service? How does this all come back together to make an easier experience for the consumer, so that they know, yeah, if I want to look for this particular product, this is exactly where I go?
Well, we agree with you completely that these services are starting to look very similar. So, whether it's HBO, Showtime, Amazon Prime, Apple,
or what you can, Hulu,
all Netflix, they're movies and scripted series, and a lot of them have the same movies. So people are going to, from a curation perspective, which one do I want? And it may be who's shouting the loudest on the new scripted series that they want. We're very clear and different. So if you have Netflix and HBO, you're going to want to have the greatest natural history on Earth. You're going to want to see and learn about, along with us, as we document the planet. So we see ourselves as being clear and differentiated. In the same way, you might have two entertainment services, but you might be in China or Europe, and you love golf, and you want to see the European Tour, the PGA Tour, Tiger Woods. You want to get instruction. So we're about powering people's passions. The rest of the media business is about aggregating entertainment. And so we think we actually have a pretty open lane.
David, it's probably worth pointing out that Netflix didn't take a pass on this. They've got pretty deep pockets, but you had kind of an inside track when it comes to this stuff. It's not material nobody else wanted.
Right. We had a unique opportunity, one, because we have a long-term relationship with the BBC. And Tony Hall, who's the chairman, is a long-term friend and friend of Discovery. But also, when we acquired Scripps, which had HGTV and food and travel, they owned a big business with the BBC, 50/50, UK TV. And it was a partnership that had a lot of challenges to it. It wasn't clear how the content could be used over the top. Neither party could control it. Neither one was consolidating it. And so as part of this deal, we agreed with the BBC that we would break up UK TV. They got about 70% of it. We picked up 30%. We'll get about another 20 million in EBITDA or more. But we get some additional channels. So we get bigger in the UK. They get a little bit bigger. But that was helpful to us, together with the relationship.
Branding question for you. Netflix has chosen not to throw in with Apple, in part because they want their brand and their UI and their interface and their relationship with the customer to be direct, right? Discovery has a particular brand. Do you ultimately throw that brand in with an Apple or somebody else that's going to ultimately consolidate a number of these networks together?
Well, look, we think we have something now with the BBC, with our brand, with real family values, telling great stories about the planet, with the greatest natural history producers on Earth, that's compelling. And the question now is, how do we get to scale? How do we get 50, 100 million homes? Why shouldn't every home everywhere in the world have this? And we are at a time when being able to piggyback on these big platforms that never existed before. So is there an opportunity with some of these big global platforms or with the big regional platforms? The answer is yes. And it's one of the reasons why we have fought, and this has been driven by the Newhouse family and Malone and myself. We have a very different strategy. We own all of our content above the globe. And we see ourselves as an IP company, a global IP company above the globe. And this is an example of that. Right. To your point, if Apple, if Google, if any of the FANG companies said, I love this, I'd like to tuck in with you and take you everywhere in the world, can you do it? The answer is not I have to get clearances, I have to pay different parties. The answer is yes on golf. The answer is yes on food, yes on home. And now today, It's yes on natural history in a way that's really robust.
I mean, Scripps made you bigger and less maybe prone to being part of something else. 5 years from now, there's going to be a standalone Discovery, do you think?
I hope so. I think that if our strategy is right, if we're able, as a global IP company, our traditional business is still growing low to mid-single. It's still a very good business. We're the largest international media company. We're the leader in sports outside the U.S. So we keep our traditional business growing low to mid-single. And in the meantime, we own all this IP that we're not getting credit for right now. The Street,
right.
You know, we have a multiple as if we don't own all that IP. But if I'm back here in 3 or 5 years and we have we have an ecosystem where we control golf and people hang out and they transact and they buy golf. If we have millions of global subscribers to natural history, whether we're with Apple or on our own, I think we'll be a massive company.